The operating room at Seattle Children's Hospital hummed with sterile precision, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and the faint beep of monitors. Dr. Lauren Carter, a 34-year-old pediatric neurosurgeon, stood over the glowing screen of a brain scan, her gloved hands steady despite the faint tremor in her fingers. A blood clot pressed dangerously against the motor cortex of a 10-year-old boy. One wrong move, a single misstep, and he could lose his ability to walk, to speak, to live. Lauren's reputation as the hands of crystal and iron preceded her, crystal for her surgical precision, iron for her unshakable calm in the face of impossible cases. But today, something felt different. The weight of the moment pressed harder than usual, as if fate itself was watching. Then, a voice sliced through the silence, sharp and hauntingly familiar. "Lauren, please, you have to save my grandson." The words hit like a thunderbolt, dragging her back to a past she'd spent a decade trying to bury. Her breath caught, and for a moment, the room spun. She knew that voice, knew it like a scar she'd traced 1,000 times in the dark. Slowly, she turned, her eyes locking onto Margaret Dawson, the woman who had once torn her world apart. Margaret stood there, older now, her once impeccable blonde hair streaked with silver, her face etched with lines that wealth couldn't erase. But those eyes, cold, calculating, unyielding, hadn't changed. Lauren's grip tightened on the scalpel, her mind flooding with memories she'd fought to forget. 10 years ago, she'd been a different woman. A medical student with dreams bigger than her small-town roots. And Margaret Dawson had ensured those dreams came at a devastating cost. 10 years earlier, Lauren Carter was a final-year medical student at the University of Washington, scraping by on scholarships and late-night shifts at a local diner. She came from a modest family in Spokane. Her father a high school teacher. Her mother a nurse who'd taught her to fight for every opportunity. Lauren's world was one of grit and determination, far removed from the tech empires that dominated Seattle's skyline. Then she met Ethan Dawson. Ethan was unlike anyone she'd ever known. The son of a powerful family in the medical tech industry. He could have flaunted his wealth. But he didn't. Instead, he was quiet, thoughtful, with a smile that could disarm even the most guarded heart. He'd sit through lectures on biomedical innovation, scribbling notes, but preferred grabbing coffee with Lauren at a hole-in-the-wall cafe near campus over dining at Seattle's elite restaurants. His passion for revolutionizing pediatric healthcare through technology matched her own drive to save lives with her hands. Their connection sparked slowly, then ignited fiercely. Late-night drives in his sleek black Audi through the misty streets of Capitol Hill became their escape. He'd talk about building affordable medical devices for kids in need. She'd share her dream of becoming a neurosurgeon who never lost a patient. It felt like their futures were intertwined, like they were meant to change the world together. When Ethan proposed on a rainy evening at Cary Park, with the Seattle skyline glittering behind them, Lauren's heart soared. He knelt in the damp grass, holding out a simple sapphire ring that caught the city lights. "Lauren Carter, will you marry me?" he asked, his voice steady but his eyes nervous. She laughed through tears, saying yes before he'd even finished. For that moment, the world was perfect, and she believed love could conquer anything. She was wrong. The Dawsons weren't just rich, they were a dynasty. Ethan's father, a tech mogul, ran a company that supplied half the medical devices in the Pacific Northwest. His mother, Margaret Dawson, was a former corporate lawyer who now chaired a multi-million-dollar medical foundation. Their world was one of private helicopters and exclusive galas, a far cry from Lauren's upbringing. The first time she met Margaret, at a sleek penthouse overlooking Puget Sound, the air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. Margaret's smile was polite, but her questions were sharp, probing where Lauren grew up, what her parents did, what she hoped to achieve. Each word carried an unspoken judgment. "You don't belong here." Lauren held her ground, trusting Ethan's love would bridge the gap. But Margaret had other plans. Margaret didn't just disapprove, she acted. She hired private investigators to dig into Lauren's past, unearthing photos from her college days, innocent moments of her laughing at a bar with friends who happened to be wealthy, snapshots that could be twisted to paint her as a gold digger. One night, Ethan showed up at Lauren's tiny apartment in Fremont, clutching a stack of those photos. His face was pale, his voice tight. "Lauren, I need to know, is this real? Are you with me because you love me? Or because of what my family has?" The accusation cut deeper than anything she'd ever felt. She'd bared her soul to him, shared every fear and dream. And now he doubted her. They fought, their voices echoing off the thin walls. "If you can't trust me, Ethan, what do we have left?" she shouted, tears streaming down her face. She slid the ring off her finger, pressed it into his hand, and walked away, her heart shattering with every step. The next morning, Lauren stood in her kitchen, staring at the ring on the counter, willing Ethan to call, to apologize, to fight for her. He didn't. Instead, she got a text from Margaret. Cold and final. "It's better for everyone if you let this go." The words stung, but worse was the doubt they planted. Did Ethan agree with his mother? Days later, a friend from her residency program mentioned Ethan was working grueling hours at his father's company. Trying to prove himself, Lauren's stomach twisted. Margaret had gotten to him. 2 weeks later, Ethan came to her apartment one last time, soaked from the Seattle rain. His eyes were red, his voice hollow. "Maybe Mom's right, Lauren. Maybe we're from two different worlds." She stared at him, barely breathing. "Are you saying you don't love me?" she asked. He shook his head. "I'm saying love might not be enough." Her words failed her. She mumbled something about trust, about fighting for each other. But it didn't matter. Ethan walked out into the rain, and something inside Lauren broke. That night, Ethan drove too fast on the slick roads of Mercer Island. His car skidded, slammed into a barrier, and flipped. Paramedics said he died on impact. The call came at 3:07 a.m. "Are you Lauren Carter?" "Ethan Dawson's emergency contact?" the voice asked. "There's been an accident. I'm sorry. He didn't make it." Lauren collapsed, the phone clattering to the floor. The next day, she went to the hospital where they'd taken him, her body moving on autopilot. In the sterile hallway, Margaret stood waiting, her designer coat immaculate, her expression sharp as a blade. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "They called me," Lauren whispered. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "You're the reason he was out there. You broke him, and now he's gone." The words were a verdict, branding Lauren with guilt she'd carry for years. In the aftermath, Lauren discovered she was pregnant. The baby was a flicker of light in her darkness, a piece of Ethan she could hold onto. She threw herself into her studies and work, whispering to her growing belly each night, "We'll be okay, little one, I promise." Margaret never reached out, her silence a wall between them. Lauren soldiered on alone, working double shifts at a clinic to pay rent, her grief a constant shadow. The day her water broke, she was charting notes in a cramped hospital office. Pain hit hard and fast. And within hours, she was in labor at Seattle Children's Hospital. The contractions were brutal, but she clung to one thought: "I'll see Ethan's eyes in our baby." When her son's first cry echoed through the room, her heart leapt, but the cry stopped too soon. "What's wrong?" she gasped. The nurse's face tightened. "There's a breathing issue. We need to act fast." Lauren watched, helpless, as her baby was rushed to an incubator. Then, silence. The doctor returned, his voice heavy. "I'm so sorry." The cord was wrapped around his neck. "We couldn't save him." The world crumbled. Lauren screamed, reaching for her son, but a needle pricked her arm, and darkness swallowed her. When she woke, a small bundle lay in a chair by the window, wrapped in a blanket. She lifted it, staring at the pale, lifeless face. "This isn't him," she whispered, a primal instinct screaming inside her. The nurse exchanged glances with a colleague. "Lauren, it's shock. This is your son." Grief drowned her protests. She kissed the cold forehead, sobbing, "I'm sorry, baby boy." The funeral was small, just a few classmates in attendance. Margaret sent flowers but didn't show. Lauren tore the card to pieces. 10 years later, Lauren was a star at Seattle Children's, one of the youngest attending neurosurgeons in the country. Colleagues admired her. Patients' parents called her a miracle worker. But inside, she was hollow, her heart locked away. She didn't date, didn't socialize, didn't let herself feel. Her life was the operating room. The only place where she could control the outcome. Then came the morning that changed everything. The trauma pager buzzed. Child. Male. 10. Head injury. Possible cranial bleed. Lauren met the gurney at the doors and froze. The boy on the stretcher had Ethan's eyes, hazel. Warm. Unmistakable. Her hands gripped the rail. What's his name? She asked the EMT. Her voice barely steady. Liam Dawson, he replied. The name hit like a punch. Dawson. Her gaze dropped to the boy's wrist, where a worn hospital bracelet dangled, a blue cord with a silver bead etched with an L. She'd made that bracelet herself. Late in her pregnancy. For her son, Liam. Her vision blurred, memories crashing over her. The brief cry in the delivery room. The wrongness of the baby she'd held. The nurse's guilty glance. And then, Margaret's voice behind her. Lauren. Please. Save my grandson. Lauren's eyes snapped to Margaret. Standing in the hallway. Looking older but still commanding. Rage and confusion surged. But Liam's faint groan pulled her back. This wasn't about her pain. It was about saving him. Get me a CT scan and prep the OR. She barked. Her voice cutting through the chaos. In the operating room, Lauren shut out everything but the boy's brain under her hands. Every cut was precise. Every suture perfect. She didn't think about Ethan. About Margaret. About the bracelet that shouldn't be there. But when the surgery ended and Liam's vitals stabilized, she allowed herself one glance at his face. His eyelashes fluttered. And for a moment, she could almost believe it. This is my son. The sterile hallway of Seattle Children's Hospital was quiet, save for the rhythmic beep of monitors filtering through the walls. Dr. Lauren Carter stood outside the recovery room. Her eyes fixed on the boy inside, Liam Dawson. The 10-year-old she'd just saved from a life-threatening brain injury. His chest rose and fell steadily. A fragile sign of hope. But it wasn't his survival that made her heart pound. It was the hospital bracelet on his wrist. A blue cord with a silver bead etched with an L, a relic from a decade ago. One she'd crafted with her own hands for the son she thought she'd lost. The realization hit like a tidal wave. Liam could be her son. Stolen from her in a moment of grief and betrayal. And standing just a few feet away was the woman who might hold the key to the truth, Margaret Dawson. Lauren's hands trembled as she turned to face Margaret. The woman who had once shattered her world. Margaret looked smaller now, her tailored coat unable to hide the toll of time and illness. Her eyes, once sharp enough to cut through steel, flickered with something new, fear. Margaret, Lauren said, her voice low but steady. We need to talk. The older woman froze, her lips parting as if to protest. But Lauren stepped closer, her gaze unyielding. That bracelet on Liam's wrist, I made it. 10 years ago. For my son. The son I was told died the night he was born. So tell me, Margaret, how is it possible that your grandson is wearing it? The air between them crackled with tension. Margaret's face paled, her hands clutching the edge of her shawl. Lauren, this isn't the time. Liam just came out of surgery. Lauren's voice sharpened, cutting through the excuse. No, this is exactly the time. I gave birth in this hospital. I was told my son died because of a cord accident. But that bracelet, it's identical. Down to the scratch I made on the bead. How, Margaret? How does your grandson have it? Margaret's composure cracked, her eyes darting away for a moment before returning, filled with a guilt Lauren had never seen in her before. You were sedated, Margaret said, her voice thin. You were in shock. You don't know what you saw. I know exactly what I saw. Lauren snapped, stepping closer. And I know you were there that night. You took him, didn't you? You took my son. The words hung heavy. A truth Lauren had buried for years now clawing its way to the surface. Margaret's lips trembled, but she said nothing. That silence was louder than any confession. Lauren leaned against the wall, her knees weak, the world tilting under the weight of what she'd just uncovered. Why, she whispered, her voice breaking. Why was hating me easier than letting Ethan marry someone you didn't approve of? What did you think stealing my child would fix? Margaret's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. You don't understand, she said, her voice barely audible. Ethan was gone, and I couldn't lose his son too. Not to you. The words cut like glass. each syllable a reminder of the judgment Lauren had faced years ago. Not to me, she repeated, her voice rising. He was my son, Margaret, my blood, my heart. You let me believe he was dead. You watched me bury an empty casket while you raised him as your own. Margaret crumpled, her back sliding down the wall until she sat on the floor, her face buried in her hands. I thought I was protecting him, she whispered. I was angry, grieving. I told myself you didn't deserve him, that I could give him a better life. Lauren stared at her, numb with rage and sorrow. You played God with my life, she said. Do you have any idea what you did to me? To him? He grew up without his mother, thinking you were his family. When I loved him before he even took his first breath. Margaret's sobs broke free, raw and unfiltered. I have brain cancer, she said suddenly, her voice fragile. Stage 4. I don't have long. I've known I was wrong for years, but I was too proud to admit it. I've ruined everything, Lauren, and I don't know how to fix it. The confession should have brought relief, but it only deepened the ache in Lauren's chest. Part of her wanted to scream, to demand why Margaret thought a terminal diagnosis could erase a decade of pain. But another part, the part that had spent years saving lives, saw a woman broken by her own choices. Lauren crouched down, eye level with Margaret. You tell him, she said firmly. Not me. You tell Liam who I am and what you did. He deserves the truth, and I won't take that from him. Margaret's eyes widened, then softened with a nod. I will, she whispered. I promise. Lauren stood and turned back to the recovery room, her hand pressing against the glass as she watched Liam sleep. His face, so like Ethan's, stirred something deep within her, a love she'd thought was lost forever. Whether Margaret lived another month or another year, Lauren knew one thing. She would not lose her son again. The next morning, Lauren walked into Liam's room, her heart racing. He was sitting up, pale but alert, a tablet resting in his lap. His hazel eyes, Ethan's eyes, met hers, curious and unguarded. Hey there, she said softly, her voice catching. How's your head? He shrugged, a small, tough kid gesture. It hurts, but Grandma says I'm strong. The word grandma twisted something in Lauren's chest. But she smiled. She's right. You were incredibly brave yesterday. Liam nodded, then turned back to his game, as if bravery was just another task he'd checked off. Behind her, the slow tap of a cane announced Margaret's arrival. She looked frail, wrapped in a soft gray shawl, her usual poise dulled by illness and guilt. Liam, she said, easing into a chair beside his bed. There's something we need to talk about. Something important. Liam's brow furrowed, his fingers pausing on the tablet. Is it bad news? He asked. Margaret shook her head, her eyes glistening. No, sweetheart. It's about family. She glanced at Lauren, then back at Liam. Do you remember how I told you your mom passed away when you were born? He nodded cautiously. Margaret's voice broke as she continued. That wasn't true. Your mother didn't die. She's alive, and she's standing right here. Liam's gaze swung to Lauren, his lips parting in shock. You're my mom? Lauren stepped closer, her knees trembling. Yes, Liam, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I'm your mom. I've loved you since the moment I knew you were coming into this world. And I never stopped. Liam blinked, processing a truth no 10-year-old should have to face. But Grandma said, he started. Then stopped. Looking at Margaret, she interrupted, her voice shaking. I lied. Liam, I was scared and wrong. And I took you from her. I thought I was protecting you. But I made a terrible mistake. The room fell silent, the heart monitor's steady beep the only sound. Liam's hands twisted in his lap, his eyes darting between them. So, you're my real mom? He asked Lauren. Yes, baby, she whispered, kneeling beside him. I'm your mom. I missed your first words. Your first steps. Everything. Because I thought you were gone. But I'm here now. And I'm never leaving you again. Liam's lip trembled. Then he said the word Lauren had dreamed of for a decade. Mom. She wrapped her arms around him, careful of his bandaged head. His small arms circled her neck. Hesitant at first. Then tighter. Warmer. When Lauren looked up, Margaret was crying silently, her hand reaching out. Lauren took it, not out of forgiveness, but in acknowledgement of the moment's weight. Over the next few days, Lauren and Liam talked for hours. He asked questions, some simple, some heart-wrenching. Why hadn't she been there? Did she love him? Would she take him away from everything he knew? Lauren answered with raw honesty, her voice steady even as her heart broke. I didn't know you were alive, Liam, but I love you more than anything. And I'll be here for whatever you need. Margaret watched from the sidelines, her illness visibly worsening, as if confessing had loosened her grip on life. One evening, Margaret took Lauren's hand and whispered, "Thank you for not hating me enough to keep him from me." Lauren didn't know if she could forgive, but she knew hate wouldn't help Liam become the man Ethan would have wanted. The day before Margaret was discharged to hospice, she called Liam to her bedside. "Be strong, sweetheart," she said, her voice weak, "and listen to your mom. She's everything I wasn't brave enough to be." Liam's eyes glistened as he hugged her tightly. A moment of genuine connection untainted by lies. 2 weeks later, Margaret passed away quietly in her Seattle home, surrounded by the luxury she'd once wielded like a weapon. Lauren stayed with Liam through it. Not for Margaret, but for him. On her final night, Margaret asked to see Lauren alone. "You don't owe me forgiveness," she said, her voice paper thin, "but promise me you'll love him enough for both of us." Lauren nodded. "I already do." Margaret smiled faintly, closed her eyes, and slipped away. After her death, Liam showed Lauren a letter Margaret had left him. He sat on the couch in their new apartment, holding it like it might break. "Should I read it, Mom?" he asked. "Only if you want to," Lauren replied, kneeling beside him. He unfolded it, reading silently, then handed it to her. His eyes wet. "She said she was sorry and that she loved me, even when she made bad choices." Lauren pulled him close, holding him as he cried, quiet tears of a boy grappling with a fractured past. Legally, everything moved quickly. Margaret had signed guardianship papers before her death, ensuring Liam was Lauren's. There was no fight, no courtroom drama, just a quiet transfer, as if the universe was finally righting a wrong. But challenges remained. At night, Liam asked hard questions. "Did you hate her, Mom?" he said one evening as Lauren tucked him in. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I did for a long time. But hate keeps you stuck. And I want to move forward with you." Liam's eyes, so like Ethan's, softened. "Do you think Dad would be proud of me?" Lauren smiled, brushing his hair back. "I know he would. He'd love how brave you are." Liam adjusted to life with Lauren faster than she'd hoped. He helped her cook, left doodles on her desk, and asked endless questions about her life before him. One day, he showed her a photo he'd found in Margaret's house, Ethan as a boy, holding a model sailboat. "Grandma said he loved the water," Liam said. "Is that true?" Lauren's throat tightened. "Yes. He dreamed of sailing across Puget Sound one day." Liam grinned. "Can we go see boats sometime?" She hugged him. "We can do anything you want, baby." Weeks later, when Liam was fully recovered, they decided to mark their new beginning. They packed a picnic and drove to Alki Beach, where the Puget Sound stretched wide and wild. The sun hung low, casting a golden glow over the water. Liam ran ahead, kicking off his shoes and splashing in the shallow waves. "Come on, Mom," he called, laughing. Lauren chased after him, her heart lighter than it had been in years. They walked along the shore, their footprints fading with each wave. At one point, Liam knelt in the sand, building something with careful hands. "What's that?" Lauren asked. "It's a dock for Dad's boat," he said softly, "so he can come back when he visits." Lauren knelt beside him, tears stinging her eyes, and together they shaped the sandy dock, placing Ethan's old model sailboat at its edge. "He's home now," Liam whispered. Lauren wrapped her arms around him, the ocean roaring behind them. "Yes, baby, he is." As the sun sank into the water, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Liam looked up at her. "Mom, can we start over? Just us, like it's a brand new life?" Lauren smiled, pulling him into a hug. "We already have, Liam. Today is day one." He grinned, his gap-toothed smile lighting up the dusk. "I love you, Mom." Her throat tightened as she whispered back, "I love you too, Liam." Always. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms. The wind carrying away the pain of the past. For the first time in a decade, Lauren felt whole. Not the grieving mother who'd lost everything, but a woman who'd fought her way back to love, family, and hope. And as she held her son, she knew this was only the beginning.